Chris, today we are talking about the Django ORM. Can anyone tell me what ORM stands for? Object Relational Mapper. Okay. So what does that mean? Does anyone know what this is going to be used for or how it's going to affect our development?
The main advantage is how it handles the server side. It makes it easier to handle like SQL queries, and
there we go.
That's what my takeaway was.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's very good. So what you guys learned in Web Fundamentals, basically how to write some raw SQL queries. Well, when we use the ORM, it's maybe going to be a little bit easier to do those things. We're not going to have to write raw SQL, okay? Which doesn't mean that you shouldn't know how to write raw SQL. It just means that it's going to make our development a little bit more user-friendly, okay? All right, so what we want to do in order to introduce this concept is we basically just want to get a pretty simple project set up, right? And let's practice these steps again. We're not going to go through the entire process because when we introduce it today, we're not going to have like a front-end application that we can sort of look at in the browser. We're going to be interacting with Django through this thing called the Django Shell, all right? All right. So let's start to get this project going. First step, what do I need to do for a Django project, Jessica? Make this bigger. You got to do that, right? Okay, cool. So inside this, let me get inside my environment. Stacks, Python, whoops. Python. Ooh, okay, so let's do source, Django. All right, yeah, that is what I typed. Very good. All right, so I got my my environment going next. Lance, what do I want to do?
Now we have to create a new project using Django.
Yes, good. So let me go back to my lectures folder. Okay, cool. So what's the command to do that?
It's Django dash
hyphen. Okay.
Hyphen admin. I believe I remember that. And then
You did it.
There's more. And then start app or something like that.
Anyone else? Project? Okay, let's do start project, right?
Start project.
Okay. Let's just call this Django ORM. Okay. Django ORM. All right, so let's go ahead and code that guy, right? Django ORM.
What was the ORM for?
Object Relational Mapper. Okay. Yeah, and did it make sense kind of what that's going to do for us when we talked about it? Oh, all right. Anyone want to explain Object Relational Mapper to Alejandro? Did anyone understand? Jeez. Yeah, so basically what it's going to do is, do you remember your SQL queries from Web Fundamentals? Okay. So what it's going to allow us to do is do those same things with a database, but not have to write the actual SQL behind it. Okay? We're going to use, yeah, well, we'll see how. So the actual methodology of it is what we're introducing today. But that's what it's going to enable us to do, is to do the same things with our database, just without writing the SQL. Okay? All right, so now I've got my project open here. Uh-oh, what happened to my environment? It's gone. Yeah, because it's a new window, right? So I need to activate that again. So let's do it. Up a couple levels into my environments. Oh gosh, if I can spell. All right.
Is your terminal session still open in another window?
No, I closed it.
Oh.
All right. Good enough. All right, we're activated again. So I could start this right now, right? I mean, I could basically start the server and I shouldn't have any problems. How do I do that? I won't ask you, Alejandro. I'm going to ask people who I know are in Django. Baxter, how do I start the server?
You're gonna say Python manage.py
Okay.
and run server.
.py run server. All right, we have started. Now I want you guys to notice something here of this, notice in red. So I have 13 unapplied migrations, okay? Your project may not work properly until we apply the migrations. We saw that yesterday, right? We were trying to use the session and it gave us an error on that because we hadn't migrated our databases. All right, cool. So just wanted to show you that real quick. We'll come back to that later. But the other thing I want to do is we want to at least create an app within our project, right? Okay, so what's the next step, Michael?
I was going to ask about the migrations.
Okay.
If you do something where you have more migrations that need to happen, but you've already migrated, should you run them again? Is that, or
Yes.
does it- okay.
Yes, you should.
So it doesn't do it automatically after you put that CL and that command line in.
Correct, yeah. So if we've migrated, that's actually a good point. If you've migrated once and you set something up or whatever, and then later on you need to make some changes, that requires another migration. Okay? All right, very good. All right, so what's the next thing we want to do, Michael, since you were...
Did you make an apps folder?
I haven't done that yet, right? So let's just make dir apps. Okay, I'll CD into it. All right, and then what do we want to drop in there if we're on Windows?
Oh, for Windows.
Yeah, that init.py, right? So double under init double under .py. Okay. Now what do we want to do? Let's see, Anthony.
Now you want to create your app.
Okay, good. What's the command for that?
You gotta go back up one level
Mhm.
to the manage.py. Python, manage.py.
Okay,
Start app,
start app.
and then name your app.
Yeah, and again, we'll just call this main. So that works with you guys? Yes.
I've been doing it without creating the init.py. Am I gonna have?
Oh, and you are on Windows?
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you run into any issues? I've seen people run into issues because of that, but I'm not entirely.
Mine just makes it automatically when it runs.
Not on that.
Yeah, but it wouldn't put it in the apps
Yeah.
folder, right? Okay. All right.
Just genetic.
In the app.
Yeah.
What?
It's kinda, I don't know why.
Maybe did it when you migrated or something?
Maybe it's an update.
Yeah, I don't know. That's quite strange. All right.
Django, right?
So what's the other thing that we need to do? Now that we've created this app, we created the apps folder, and then we created an app, right? How do I tie it into my actual project? Yeah, I gotta add it to the settings, right? Okay, good. So we've got this subfolder, which has our settings.py. Let's go in here, find our installed apps, and let's drop it in there, right? Okay, so apps.main. Okay. All right. So now the other thing that we want to do is we're talking about the ORM today, which means that we're going to be dealing with models. Okay, this is going to actually be some database action which we haven't gotten to yet. So let's look inside this app that was created for us, and we'll see that we have this models file. All right. So this is where we're going to be creating our models. The models are going to be used to interact with our database. Okay. Now notice how we're already importing models here from Django.db. So if I want to create a model for a particular type of thing, so let's say we're creating a user, we're going to use this, and we'll see how we're actually going to be inheriting from something. All right. So it's going to be kind of a throwback to our OOP stuff. All right, so let's say I want to create a user class. How do I do that? No, that was right.
Oh.
Right, the class keyword.
Okay. Users.
So we're going to call it user. We want to keep that singular. That's
Oh.
the convention, right?
Or,
Okay. Now this time, though, rather than just dropping my colon here and being done with it, we actually want to inherit from something. Okay? And what we're going to be inheriting from is models.model. Okay? So what does this model look like to you guys right there?
Class.
Looks like a class, right? Okay, cool. All right, now what we want to do is we want to add some different attributes to this class, and the attributes are going to be the field names that we want our database to have. Okay? All right. So let's just keep it simple. I say let's do first name, last name, email, right? And then we'll have some timestamps. You guys remember created at, updated at, that sort of thing? Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of shaky. All right. So let's do first name.
Reporting.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have to do the that init for the attributes? How we were doing it?
No, yeah, and this is going to look a little bit different. So rather than the instance having these attributes, we're creating class attributes here, right? So if we create a class and we just set up some attributes outside of any of the methods, then those are now class attributes. Okay, they belong to the entire class, not just an instance. Okay. There a question? Oh no. Okay.
What is the purpose of the model? What's it gonna do for our project?
So what it's going to do is it's going to allow us to create a database with all of the different, basically with all the different tables that we need. And it's going to help us set up our relationships too. Okay. So when we migrate this thing, we're expecting that we're going to get a users table. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to say first name equals models. And then this is going to be the type of field that we want. So we're going to call it a car field. All right. And then we need the parentheses. So what does that look like, Jessica? You see those parentheses there. So yeah, it looks like a function, but notice the casing here. Looks like we're creating an instance of this class, no? Okay.
Because the first letter is capitalized.
Mm-hmm.
What's it called when you, or what's Python case?
Oh, snake case? Is that
Snake
what you heard me
case,
say?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So snake case would be when it's lowercase, but then you have the words separated by underscores.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is not snake case. This is actually Pascal case, where we have each first letter of the word capitalized. Okay. So in here I can pass some arguments if I want. Like if I want this to have a max length of, I don't know, 255, that would be a pretty long first name, right? But you could do that, okay? And that's going to create a limit in the actual database, all right? We want a last name too. In fact, I'll just duplicate this real quick and change the name. No real difference there. Let's duplicate it one more time. We'll say the email. All right.
What's the command for it to duplicate?
So it's Alt-Shift, and then you can use either the up or the down arrow. Yeah. So if I do up arrow, it would create it above where I am. All right, so there's that. And then we also want to add some timestamps, which we kind of talked about briefly. I have, again, a snippet that I created so that I can just put this in there very easily. So if I type in timestamps, I've got that snippet which does this for me. Okay? And what this is saying is that we have this created at field, which is going to be a date time field. Okay? And the auto now add equaling true, that means that when I add a new user, I'm always going to create that date time stamp for that specific time, right? but it's not going to change when we update the user. Okay, it's only going to be added when we add one. And then I've got the updated at, which means auto. We say auto now equals true. That means that timestamp is going to change every single time I update the user. Okay.
What is the purpose of adding a timestamp? Like, does it do anything, or is it just so you know when it's created? Or?
Yeah, I mean, if we want to know when this user was created, now we have that in the record, right? That's when the user is created. We might want to know when was the user last changed, and that's just what the updated at is for. Yes, Connor, question.
Why is true in quotes? Is it not a boolean?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll try to figure it out for you after we're done with this. That's legit. Yes.
So you can just make any kind of parameter for like these kind of classes, like char field and date time field. You just put
No. So yeah, and one thing I was going to show you guys is here in the documentation, not making queries, but I've linked this page on our schedule here. So let me show you where it is. So I've got this Django models field link for you guys. And that's where you can find all the different types of fields that you can use. So if we look down here, quite a few different types. We're not going to be using all of them, obviously, but here we're using car field, right? There's a date field, a date time field, which we were using for those timestamps. Oh, there's even an email field. Maybe we should try that, huh? That seems like a good thing. There we go. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that is a pretty long email, you're right. There's even an image field and an integer field, or a null Boolean field, slug field, text field. So a text field would be like if we had some long piece of text that we were trying to store, right? Maybe a person was I don't know, creating some text for a web page or something like that. You might use that.
What is a slug field?
I'm guessing probably a slug for a URL is what that's referring to. Yeah, so it's a short label for something containing only letters, numbers, underscores, or hyphens. They're generally used in URLs. Yeah. So maybe like if we had a really long product name or whatever, we'd have a slug that was just, you know, maybe 3 different words that were all in lowercase separated by hyphens, representing that long product title. Okay. All right, so we've got this whole thing set up here with our model. What do we need to do to actually be able to use this?
Link it up
Yeah, so how do we do that?
to our URL.
No, we're not going to use it in the browser today. We're just going to interact with it through the Django Shell. Is anyone at the database stuff right now? I'm pretty sure. So what do we need to do now?
You have to migrate.
Mm-hmm. So first thing is we have to make our migrations, and then we have to migrate, just like we did yesterday, in order to be able to use session, right? Okay, so let me open up my terminal again. Okay, and then so we'll do Python. Whoops, I'm going to move out of my apps folder back into the main folder. So we'll say Python manage.py make migrations. Okay, and you'll see what happened here is it's saying that it made us this file. So inside our migrations folder, we have this file 0001. That was epic. All right. So we got 0001 underscore initial.py. So this is the actual migration file that was created for us. All right. Let's look at it real quick. Just glance at it. So inside my migrations, I've got this file that they created. Let me close that out. Okay. Whoops. So generally, you guys aren't going to have to worry about this, what the migrations file is actually doing. but you can see that it's grabbing all the fields from what we had in our models file, right? And yeah, there's not a whole lot going on here. You see the name right there. That's the name of our model. And when we apply this, we'll expect to see that in our database, we actually now have a users table, right? Cool, so let's go back to the terminal here. Now, what's the next command I need to run?
Pipe 9.
What? Pipe 9? Is that what you said?
Pipe 9.
Oh, Jesus. Python, all right. Well, I guess I gave you guys the answer then. So we're gonna run migrate, right? All right, there we go. So you can see that it was applying all the migrations that we had in that file, and it was also applying other migrations that were happening, like with the session table and the other things that were built in, right? All right, cool. So now, in order to actually kind of interact with this model, what we want to do is we want to get inside the Django shell. Anybody know how to do that? So we keep using this manage.py file, right? Let's do that again. So we'll say python manage.py, and then we can say shell. Okay, so this is getting us inside the Django shell, which will allow us to actually interact with our database. Not through the web app, but just through our terminal like this. So this is kind of cool. So in order to actually use our model, what do you think we're going to need to do to kind of get access to it inside the shell here? If I was trying to use it inside of a file, what would I have to do?
Add a link in that file too,
Okay, a link. That's an interesting thought.
or
What's
a
a
pathway.
better word? We'd have to import it, right? Okay, so let's do that. So let's say from apps.main.models, let's import that specific model, right? Okay, so we should have our user model right now. And now what we want to do is we want to kind of go through the process of creating, reading, updating, and deleting. Okay, you guys heard the term CRUD before? Yeah, okay, so we just kind of want to show how to do those different things with the ORM. All right, so in order to actually create a user, what I need to do is I need to say the user class, and then we have this attribute on the class called objects. And then I need to invoke this method called create. Okay, real quick, what did the parentheses mean, Alejandro?
What does the parentheses mean? When you call it?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it means that we are calling a function, right? Okay, and then I need to pass in the different things that a user is going to expect, right? So we have first name, last name, and email. Let's create our first user. How about Lance? You want to be the first user?
Sure.
All right. So we'll say first name Lance and your last name Lance. Wade. Okay. And your email is going to be l@w.com. All right. Look at that. We got back this user object. Okay. Cool. Let's enter in a couple more, and then we'll start playing around with updating and deleting and that sort of thing. Daniel? Come on, I wanted to get Alejandro in here. What are you doing to me? Alejandro lives. All right. What was your last name again, Alejandro?
Made a song about him.
Harrerr.
H-A-H-E-R-R, right? Herrera? Okay. a@h.com.
It can be masterpiece. No?
Oh, you want to have a custom email. All right.
Yes.
So what are we going to be? Master PC? at Herrera.com. Oh, gosh.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was like, I see what you're doing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, let's do one more.
Net
Oh,
zero.
let me go back here. All right, who's next? How about Kevin, since you're new to our lectures? Johnny Lawrence.
McAllister.
I'm gonna try to. Yasutomi. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Like
cool.
one of the few people that actually got it right, so I'll tell you that right now.
Woohoo! All right.
That's
KY.com.
funny, that's my too.
All right.
I'll explain later.
Excellent. So we've got 3 users in our database so far. How can we go about reading them? That's probably your next thought, right? Like, I actually want to see these users that I just put in there. Okay, well, let's do it. So let's say user.objects.all. Okay, so we have this method here that we can call the all method to actually pull all of our users at one time. Whew, that looks pretty friendly, huh? So what did we get back, though? What's this called? We got back a query set. Looks a lot like a list, doesn't it? Okay. So we're expecting there would be multiple users when we run this query. So one way that you could actually see the data associated with those is if you said we have this other method we can attach to it called values, and that would show us all the data that's in there. Jesus.
There's the updated equation.
Yeah, so I mean, all the data is in here, but does this look like a very friendly way of looking at
The
it?
question is, you can read?
What?
You can read?
Can I read that? I wouldn't want to, but yeah, I could. Yeah, so obviously we've got this list, and then we have these. These look like dictionaries, right? So that's something that we're used to seeing. Could we iterate through this, perhaps, do you think?
Yes.
All right. How might we do that? With a loop, right? So let's try to iterate through it real quick. So we'll say for user in user.objects.all. So that's giving us all the users, right? And then if I tab over here and I just print out user, what do we get? Oh man, look at this. That's not so friendly either. What's that? Yeah, user object. Woo! How user friendly, right? All right, so let's try something else. We have this thing called a dict property that we can call on a specific user object, and that will enable us to see it as a dictionary. Okay, so when we loop through it, let's do that, and then instead of printing just the user itself, let's say user dunder dict.
Do you just hit enter when you type for user and user objects all, and then it goes to the next line, or did you hit like shift or something?
Yeah, I hit enter, and basically it
Reads it as
knows,
a
okay, this is going to be continued
Okay.
because you've just opened up a block of code.
What is dict for?
Oh, geez, it's still not. I mean, we're still seeing the values, but they're kind of like clumped up, right? All right. Yeah, so what dict is doing is it's basically taking all the data that was in that user object and it's sort of converting it into a dictionary form so you can see it.
Why is 2 underscores starting a phrase?
That's just the name of the property that you have to call if you want to see that object as a dictionary. Okay. However, if I just wanted to get a specific attribute out of that object,
Values.
I could do something like this. I could say user.firstname. And there we go. So we've got, it's looping through all of our users and we're just printing out the first name of each one, right? Okay. Any questions about this so far before we move forward?
It's slightly off topic, but I was wondering what the numbers.
Thinks it's 5:40 p.m. because it's using UTC.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
It's saying
Time zone.
Year 2019.
Yeah,
October 10th.
The 17 and 39.
Yeah, so probably we'd want to change the time zone in our settings if we wanted that to be
Oh, specific.
what we're expecting. Yeah, exactly.
You can print the emails?
Yeah, I could do the exact same thing, right? So we could go like this, change this to user.email, And there we go. All right.
Masterpiece. You
just wanted to see the masterpiece.
Very good, man. I see what you did there. Nice. All right, so that's how we can get all the users. What if I wanted to get a specific user? How do you guys think I could do that? Let's do this. We're gonna say user.objects again.
You mean print out one key for the user, or print out all of the items, all of the attributes for the user, all the values, attribute values?
Yeah, let's just we'll return all the attributes as well, just like we did last time with a dictionary kind of thing. All right, cool. So let's just do get, and then inside the get that we're invoking this function, we need to say what is the criteria for the record that we're looking for. Okay. So if I want to get a record that has a first name, of Mark. Let's do that, right? And then we'll say, I'm going to call this dict attribute here. Whoops. Did I not put you in there, Mark?
No, you didn't.
Oh, shoot.
I was supposed to be Daniel the Russo.
All right, fine. That's right. Alejandro. Okay. Whew. So there it is. I mean, that's how we can actually get an individual record, as we would say, .get, right? We call that function. Okay. Now there's another way that I can also, notice how that gave me one specific record, right? There's another way that I can basically filter my users by some criteria. So I could say, what if I want all the users who have a particular last name? All right, so let's do, let me clear out of this. Oh, I can't clear. Let's do user.objects, and then we'll say .filter. So I only want to get the users who meet this criteria, right? So we'll say last name equals Yasutoni. Okay, and then we'll do .values again, just so that we can see exactly what the user is. Okay, so notice here that we've got, again, what was this called?
Query set.
A query set. Okay, but what was the difference with this versus what we saw up there when we did a get call?
This query set is only fulfilling the people with the last name Yasutani.
Mm-hmm. So the important distinction here is that when we're using filter, it's potentially going to return more than one result, right? In any case, it's going to return an actual set, which will be acting like a list. So either that set will have nothing in it, or it will have one or more records inside of it. However, get will only return one record, so it would return the first matching record in our database. If there was no matching record, you could see what happened there. We actually got an error from that, didn't we? Did you guys see that? So when I tried to get Mark from my database and he wasn't in there, I actually got an error. Versus if you were to do a filter call, you would just get an empty query set. So if Mark's not in there, that's okay. I'll just get this empty list, right? Okay, cool. We have a couple other things that you guys can use as far as just getting specific users. I could do something like user.objects.first to give me the very first user that's in my database. And then again, we'll just do dict so that we can see what that looks like. Okay, so Lance was the first user that I added to my database, right? I can also do user.object. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that. Last dict. Okay. There we go. Kevin was the last user that I added. Very good. Okay, so this is basically how we're going to read the different objects in our database, right? How would we have written any of this stuff in a SQL query? Like, what if I just wanted to get all my users? What would that look like in a SQL query?
Select users or user from users.
Select
What's your class?
star. Oh, select star.
What does that star mean, by the way?
All.
Yeah, so that means we're selecting all the fields from this table, right? Select star, and then what comes after that?
From.
Something like that, right? Select star from users if I want to get all my users. What if I wanted to get a specific user? How would I do that in SQL?
And then put where after. It's the same thing, but where.
From users, where?
And whatever criteria you
Yeah, so whatever the criteria was, so if I wanted the ID to be 1, for instance, I could do that, right? Okay.
Since we didn't add an ID field, what's happening there?
It is adding one for us. And I think we saw that here. You see the ID right in here?
Oh, we do have.
Yeah. Yeah, so
And that
Django's
auto
doing this
increments?
for us under the hood. Yes, it's auto incrementing. Pretty nice, right? Okay, cool. So another thing I want to show you guys too is that there are some nice ways that we can look at this data in our VS Code, which is kind of cool. 2 different ways you guys can use. There's this program that you can install. It's called DB Browser for SQLite, because our Django projects are using SQLite under the hood. Let me just find it for you. SQLite. You see how in line 77 it's telling us our databases are using this engine right here, a SQLite engine. Okay. So what SQLite is it's basically storing all of our data in one single file. Do you guys remember seeing a SQLite file inside your projects? Yeah. So we have that if we look over here, db.sqlite3 right there. Okay? There is an extension inside VS Code that you can install that will allow you to actually look at the data inside the SQLite file. So let's show how that works. So if I do Command-Shift-P, I'll open up this little menu here. After you've installed the extension, you'll be able to select this so that you can open a database. All right? And when I click on that, we're just going to choose a database from the file. And here I've got, whoops, not Django session, right? Inside of our Django ORM, we've got this db.sqlite3, which I can open up there. Now I have this little explorer thing down over on the left-hand side. So I can actually explore my DB right in here, and you can see all the different tables that are on it. All right? So if I go to main user, the way that these tables are going to be labeled is that it's going to start with the name of your app and then underscore the name of that specific model. So let me click on that real quick, and then I'll just, oops, how did I end up in my migrations? So if we click on this little arrow here, it will actually do this, yeah. So that's kind of cool, right? It gives us kind of a nice little graphical interface where we can see our data. And you can see that we've got our timestamps and everything we're expecting. Yeah, it looks much better, right? So once you install this extension, it'll give you a nice little view into your data. So let's keep working in the terminal.
Is there a specific name of the extension, or should we just search?
It's just called SQLite, if I remember correctly. Let me make sure for you. SQLite. Yep, it's just called SQLite. All right. So far what we've done is we've created, we've read, we haven't updated or deleted yet, right? Okay, so let's see how we want to do that. So the first thing that we want to do before we update a user is we actually need to get a reference to it. Okay, so what user do we want to update? Should we update Alejandro? So let's say, I'll just say Alejandro equals user.objects.get, and then I know that I can do it by first name because he's the only Alejandro I have, right? Alejandro, go. Okay. So now again, if I were to just do Alejandro.dict, I've got his data there, okay? So I'm looking at the right guy. Now I want to update something about him. So what should we
about
change?
If you have two Alejandros, like same name.
So it should just get the first one. Okay. So if you know if you're doing a situation like that where you know there could be more than one result, we wouldn't be using get. We would probably be doing some kind of a filter. All right. So we'd be filtering our users based on some criteria. All right. Cool. So now that I have Alejandro, I just want to change something about him. Let's change his email address, right? So I'll say Alejandro. Yeah.
Novice PC.
Oh, novice.bc. Okay. All right. Have we changed it yet, do you think?
No.
Maybe, yeah, there may be one other step that I need to do. So I've it looks like I've changed the attribute. However, I haven't really saved the record, right? Okay. So what we need to do is we just need to say Alejandro.save. So we're going to call this method that's available on our user objects.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so now you've been saved. Let's see if I can refresh this. I think there's a way to refresh this.
Maybe you have to
Sport.
reopen the file.
I feel like maybe it's over here in the site. Oh, here we go. Refresh that. And then if I click that again, oh, there we go. Okay. Now there may be a faster way to do it, but basically I just refreshed over here and then I just clicked the arrow. Okay. So that showed me the updated information. All right, cool. Any questions about updating a record in our database?
What was the done return for?
I was just basically printing or showing the information to show that yes, we have all that. That's all. It's not something that you'd have to do.
You take down.
Everything would work exactly the same because we got him by his name, right? And then after that, I made a change to his email, and then I saved it. Okay. Right. Any other questions about updating?
Maybe we should call the dictionary again to make sure that it updated.
Okay.
Since you have it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I should have that right there. Okay. So there it is, right? There's his updated email.
I didn't believe it until I saw it.
Oh, good. I'm glad I converted you. All right. So update's good for you guys. You feel good about the updating? All right. Just change the attributes that you need to change, and then we call the save method on it. All right. Cool. How do we destroy? So, yeah. Let's say I want Alejandro out of here. I've had it with him. So all we. Hey, I'm just playing, man. Get back here. I like it. All right, so all we need to do, so we have this reference to Alejandro already. All I need to do is invoke the delete method. Okay, so you can see here main.user1. We did, in fact, delete him. So if I refresh this here, maybe I can just, okay. You don't actually, it looks like we don't even have to press this. If I just click that arrow again, it will be the refresh data. So you can see he's now gone. I've just got these 2 users. Yes?
Why does it say user one? Is it when user two? Is that, or am I?
Oh, this right here?
Yeah.
That's just, like, think of this as, this is the number in the query set, but that's not the actual ID, right? The actual ID was over here.
Okay.
Because we deleted the user who had the ID of 2. Okay, but the number should just be in order of the actual items that your list pulled up.
So when you delete from a database, the IDs stay the same and don't update?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yep. Yeah.
What's the one in the shell? Like main user one. Yeah.
I believe that's telling us that it deleted one user. I think. Are you asking what the other one was though?
No.
Got 1 and 1.
Yeah, that's why I was like wondering why
Mm.
one came, the number one came out.
All right. I'll try to make a mental note to look into that for you.
Even though we deleted from the database, do these programs keep some kind of information about, oh, this user was updated, or this user was deleted at, and then keeps their records.
Not that I
so it's
know of.
gone.
No, it's completely gone. Yeah. So if you wanted to do something else, where you wanted to like deactivate a user or turn, put them in a different state or something like that, but not delete them, you could have some kind of, maybe we could have a field inside of our table, a Boolean, like is this user active, right?
Okay.
That way, they're not completely gone. All right. So how would we have made these SQL queries? Just like a small, quick review. If I wanted to do that update query in SQL, how would I have done that? Update, right? All right. Update users. So that's the table that we're in. It's called main underscore user here, but if we were doing like a regular schema, we'd probably call it users. And then we would need to set certain fields equal to things, right? So we could say something like set, I think we changed his email, right? We said set email equal to a@h.com. And then we would have some sort of a where clause, right? Because we're trying to find the specific user. And then in keeping with what we did before, we would say something like where first name equals Alejandro.
So you were saying that
Okay.
we should have named it users, like main underscore users.
No, what I was saying is that if we were doing this without an ORM, so if we were just creating our own our own schema for our project, right? We would probably just call the table users. But it's fine that it's calling it main underscore user. I mean, most of this stuff, we're not really going to be interacting with it directly. We're kind of interacting with it through the ORM anyway, right? So that's not a problem. Okay. So does this make sense to you guys? How we would update somebody in SQL? Yes.
That would do all the users that have Alejandro. How do you do just like one?
So yeah, we could probably
More descriptive with the
ID.
yeah, we would probably do it by ID. I was going to say the exact same thing. So if we do it by ID, we can be sure that there is no more than one, right? Because this ID is auto incrementing. Okay. How would we have deleted Alejandro?
users.
So delete from users where, and again, this probably wouldn't be the best. We'd probably want to use his ID just to ensure that we weren't deleting other Alejandros that we didn't want to delete, right? Okay. So delete from users where first name equals that, but we'd probably do delete from users where ID equals whatever his ID was. Okay. Any questions about the Django ORM? So today we did create, read, update, and delete, right? The main kind of functionality that we would see with an app. Yes, Anthony.
So when you update an attribute, you have to do save. Or
Correct.
It saves on its own.
Yeah, so when we delete it, it's a done deal. You don't need to follow up on that. Yep. Dangerous, yeah. Make sure you know what you're doing, right? Okay. All right, let's have thumbs on this. Alejandro? Yep. Good, okay, good. Yep. Yeah. Whew, man, when we get a day with all the thumbs up, I am very pleased. Excellent, guys. Any final questions before we break?
Can you grab those tables and drop it into the SQL? You know how we could separate it into the tables and the relationships
Mhm.
in the actual SQL app?
Saying in MySQL.
Yeah. Can we? Yeah.
Oh, you want to basically take like a database dump from this file and then
Yeah.
bring it into SQL? Yes, I'm certain that there's a way to do it. It's kind of outside the scope of what we're talking about today, but yeah, no doubt you could do it.
For the Python exam, are we going to download a database and work with it, or
No, you're going to be creating your database in the exact same way that we did. So we went inside of our models file, right, and we created the individual model that we needed, and then we made migrations, and then we migrated it, and that created the database for us.
The database kind of just organically you figure out what you need for the models just by creating your program first, right? Or like the front end. And
Right.
work
So
kind of
like the
backwards.
yeah, exactly. The specifications of the project would kind of dictate what fields do I need for each one of these models. Exactly. And when you guys are doing your assignments, of course, they'll be kind of telling you this is what we want to have. So generally, you'll know what fields you need to have for each model. Yep. All right, great. Let's get to work.